Well, the government of Great Britain is cracking down on its citizens right now, and not for crimes you might expect, but for crimes related to thoughts and opinions. I question whether or not we're next in line for this biggest of big government pressures. Despite the fact that the British media is calling it far-right protests, the fact is it's people in the streets who are concerned their civil unrest is about the fact that they are feeling beaten up by the other real crimes that are taking place and the two-tiered system of justice being applied by British government. Mass migration, cultural upheaval are all straining the resources of the people. British streets have been flooded with protesters and counter-protesters. British law enforcement is really being stretched. Average citizens have just had enough. Immigrants who are demanding amnesty and public services are stretching real British resources, and the British government has decided that the real problem, the thing they need to crack down on to fix it all, words on social media. You heard me. The real problem, according to the British government, is what people say on social media. But this is not so far removed from us. A mere 2 years ago, Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, he announced the creation of a DHS Disinformation Governance Board. Remember that? Nothing scary there. Never a problem when your government governs your thoughts. The ill-conceived Disinformation Board died a quick and public death, and rightfully so. Ostensibly, DHS would have monitored communications or opinions or reporting of domestic citizens and businesses right here in the United States. Not the CIA, not the NSA, not the monitoring of traffic that comes in from other places, but actual U.S. citizens who have First Amendment rights being monitored by their government to see whether or not they are correct in what they say. When did that become okay? Short answer, never. It is not the role of government to determine truth or assign opinions or censor thought. And truthfully, in our situation, it was only the outcry of freedom-conscious conservatives that shut down DHS's Orwellian effort before it really got off the ground. But knowing that they even tried ought to give you pause. But back to England again, the increasingly socialistic government of Great Britain, it went ahead and did just that. It was recently rebranded as the National Security Online Information Team. And what started off just to fight COVID disinformation, remember that, has morphed into an effort to redirect and prosecute thought that has alarming implications for the citizens of our greatest ally in the world, Great Britain. You go ahead and add to the fact that they've got a thought police team, the fact that the British government also recently passed legislation making it a crime, an actual crime, to post or repost or host on your platform topics that it considers insightful or designed to malign or cause unrest, and you begin to sense the foreboding hand of Big Brother. The benignly named Online Safety Act in Great Britain is still in the process of its implementation, but Liberals, they haven't got enough yet. They need more. The Mayor of London, the Liberal Mayor of London, is asking UK ministers to review the law very, very quickly, he says, in light of all the recent civil unrest. Why? Because he wants more power. But really, who decides? Who has the final say for this word to be okay and that word not? The government, apparently. By their own admission, British law enforcement has begun scouring social media, they say, via dedicated police officers. Under their new mandate, Stephen Parkinson, who is Britain's Director of Public Prosecutions, he said, quote, "Their job is to look for this material and then follow up with identification, arrests, and so forth." He went on to say, so it's really, really serious. People might think they're not doing anything harmful, but they are, and the consequences will be visited upon them, he said. But that wasn't enough, though, because Parkinson didn't stop there. He doubled down. He said they intend to hunt down people outside of their own borders, outside of their country, who dare to post online in a manner not deemed fitting under British law. He actually said this, he said, quote, "We have liaison prosecutors around the globe who've got local links with local judiciary, and we would certainly consider extradition if we are not satisfied with an offense that has been committed." Wow. Okay, how about this? You come and take it. Now, extradition is not likely. Let's be honest. As a lawyer, I can just tell you, the idea that an American citizen may post something on their social media in a manner otherwise protected under constitutionally protected speech here in the U.S., and then be tried in absentia in England, and then extradited against their will to serve out a judicial punishment for crimes in that foreign land, That's kind of out there on the margins of disbeliefs. But the mere fact that he said it at all should give all of free Western society a moment of collective pause. Now, where it could more likely come into play is for a liberal progressive government of Great Britain, a government who already has departments dedicated to prosecuting mere opinions and unapproved ideas, to collaborate with a liberal progressive government in the U.S., like the one currently headed by the Biden-Harris team, who have already indicated they have a desire to do just that too, to govern thought, and then selectively target U.S. companies or individuals with sanctions or travel advisories or the seizure of international property. They could do that. They could do that tomorrow. 1 minute a business leader is sitting at home in America, fully clothed in his First Amendment right. That business leader decides to comment on something in UK policy in such a way that the UK government takes issue. And suddenly that international shipping agreement, or that foreign-held real estate holding, or that cross-border venture capital, or those funds being held in foreign banks, they just get frozen or held or lose their permits. And while the U.S.-born business person sits in the U.S., his business begins to tank internationally simply because of something on his Facebook page. Look, the UK government could impose those sanctions, and the liberal US government could decide that there's just not really anything they can do about it. Sorry. Should have kept your evil thoughts and opinions to yourself. Calls are already being made right now to condemn and indict Elon Musk for daring to speak into the situation on his own social media platform. Posting on X, formerly Twitter, Musk said, here's his quote. He said, quote, "Freedom of speech is the bedrock of democracy. If the truth is suppressed," he said, "it is impossible to make an informed voting decision. The degree to which freedom of speech is being undermined around the world is extremely alarming." That shouldn't be a concerning statement. In other posts, too, Musk has gone ahead and just directly addressed the British government, drawn the ire of British leaders by addressing their heavy-handedness directly. They're not taking it well. There are threats against Elon Musk right now. In a recent column, legal scholar and professor Jonathan Turley, he cited innumerable cases of seemingly benign speech resulting in the arrest of British citizens. Simple things like standing there quietly praying to yourself in front of an abortion clinic, insulting someone's girlfriend, what was considered to be a racial slur of some type, other things that the thought police swooped in and arrested people for. Turley went on to say that too many liberal progressive leaders here in the U.S. are working to bring this same measure of thought control to our own borders. He concluded that piece that I'm talking about by saying this. He said, quote, "The effort of these politicians would allow free speech to be reduced to the lowest common denominator as countries export their anti-free speech laws." Can't happen. But y'all, there's so much more to this story. Think back to England again. How did they get here? I mean, in the broader sense, we're watching the British government becoming more and more heavy-handed. The mayor of London, one of the largest cities in the world, decided that the air quality in London needed improving. He's an avowed member of the climate cult, by the way. So what did he do? Well, he came up with an approved list of climate-friendly automobiles. You heard me right. The government put some cars on the naughty list and some on the nice list. They declared certain sections of London to be a ULEZ, U-L-E-Z. That stands for an ultra-low emission zone. Okay, so what? Well, then there had to be an enforcement capability. So thousands of surveillance cameras have now been set up all over London which snap pictures of passing autos. They use artificial intelligence to identify them, match their ownership up to government registration databases, and send them fines in the mail. Fines to the car owners who dare to drive an unapproved car. Not just once, but every single day. If you can't afford one of the newer government-approved cars, and your daily commute to work where you earn a living takes you through the London low-emission zone, you can get fined up to $15 a day, every day, all year long. By the way, impressed with his own ability to go all in on big government, the Liberal mayor of London also recently declared all of London now to be a ULEZ zone. As a result, people are up in arms. An entire cottage industry of entrepreneurs now post camera locations online to help folks get around them. A group calling themselves the Blade Runners has a huge following on social media about how they target and disable the ULEZ cameras. This is madness. Okay, so we've all heard about the epic novel by George Orwell called 1984. I mean, it's a big part of pop culture now, one of those writings which has now become bigger than the book itself. There are cliched phrases that we use every single day that many people don't even realize came from the impact that 1984 had on society. The funny thing is, the book was written in 1949, at a time when the year 1984 seemed like a distant future. We're now over 70 years after its publication, nearly 40 years past the date for which it was titled. But yes, we are living in an age when the matters that were contemplated in the book 1984, they don't seem so far away now. All of a sudden, Orwell's writings seem very prescient. And the phraseology from 1984, it's embedded in our daily lexicon. I mean, think about it. It's not uncommon for someone to say something from big government is Orwellian, or that Big Brother is watching you, or to claim that the thought police are afoot. But what about those concepts themselves? Think about all the things I just described to you, about the disinformation board that was proposed for the United States, or about the thought police going on right now, and the surveillance cameras happening in Great Britain. In the novel in 1884, they actually had the thought police, the secret police of the superstate that runs the whole dystopian world in the book. The job of the thought police was to discover and punish thought crime, which were personal and political thoughts that were unapproved by the regime. The thought police used criminal psychology and omnipresent surveillance via informers and telescreens and cameras and microphones to monitor all the citizens and arrest those who committed thought crime and challenged to the status quo authority of the party or the regime of Big Brother. All of a sudden, y'all, George Orwell's writings seem like they're spot on, don't they? What we're seeing in government action right here in the Western world is nothing more than the thought police from Orwell's classic novel 1984. The secret police of that dystopian superstate, they had a charter to discover and punish that thought crime. And I'm telling you right now, what we're seeing, what we're experiencing in a book written in 1949. Well, once again, reality is stranger than fiction. And sometimes, fiction's based in reality. Look, I'll be honest with you, I lived in Great Britain for 3 wonderful years. It was a life-changing time in my personal life. And the British people, they are the salt of the earth. They may call soccer football, they may drink their tea hot, but they're just like us. They're freedom-minded, they're independent, they're courageous, they're capable. Great Britain is our greatest ally, and we cannot be without their presence alongside us in the world stage. So my hope is that the British people will reclaim their rights and move their government back to the right side of culture. But the road they're on right now, it's one that carries with it the erosions of freedom overall. Sometimes it happens slowly, like the temperature going up slightly over time in the boiling pot with the frog, right? And then wham! Suddenly they announce that the government alone will determine what you can drive or what you can think or what you can say. But the government is not well suited to set itself up as the arbiter of truth. When those who govern believe they can regulate thought, well, that's where truth goes to die, and freedom of speech becomes a dusty memory. President Ronald Reagan, he talked about this often. In one of those timeless quotes from one of his speeches that came and spoke into generations, Reagan once said, he said this, "Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it to our children," he said, "in our bloodstream. It must be fought for, protected, and handed on for them to do the same. Or one day, we will spend our sunset years telling our children and our grandchildren what it was once like in the United States where men were free." Well, God bless the people of Great Britain, and God bless America. Speech is our right. So you tell them if they want it, they're going to have to work for it. Tell them if they want it, just try it, come take it. That's my philosophy.